Here we go. All right, so welcome to Neighboring 101. Wow, how time flies. This is session number 39 of this class, and this is where we get together. We talk with neighbors and other people who are interested, individuals and leaders in the neighboring movement, is how I should say that, and how we can use that to improve our own lives and improve our own neighborhood as well. Just for introductions today, I wanted to go through a couple of slides to bring you up to date or make you aware of a few things. Once I can reach that. Screen is just, there we go. Sorry about that. Just couldn't quite reach it. So again, welcome. And so we have almost 800 people in the Neighboring 101 network now. I know not everyone's always able to join live, but if you can, it's a great opportunity to ask questions, and we encourage making connections online during this and growing your network that way as well. So chat is open, and you can individually message other people as well. Whoops, my slides are not advancing. You know, we talked earlier about technology and best laid plans before we started. There we go. Missouri Good Neighbor Week, just for those who maybe had not already heard, we got 62 nominations for engaged neighbors across the state, and had people go to the website and actually documented over 19,000 acts of neighboring. And those awards have been announced. And so we named 20 people with the best acts of neighboring and 12 as the most engaged neighbors across the state. And their prize checks are in the mail, as the saying goes, along with certificates. So a few changes in store for next year, but hope to continue growing this effort. For those of you that love podcasts, wanted you to know about the Show Me Mo Success. It is a podcast put out by the University of Missouri Extension. It's focused on business and community. We do have a couple episodes on there focused on neighboring and neighboring initiatives, but if you enjoy podcasts, you may like Show Me Mo Success. Well, this seems a long ways away, but it will be here before you know it. March 20th is Mr. Rogers' birthday, and it's something nationally known as Won't You Be My Neighbor Day. Well, MU Extension, we secured a website, Won't You Be My Neighbor Day, just spelled out, .com, and in partnership with the Hopeful Neighborhood Network, or Hopeful Neighborhood Project, we're using that day to encourage people to do acts of kindness for their neighbors. So more events coming up, circling around that day on March 20th, but wanted you to be aware of that. This also seems a long ways away, but there's a reason I'm letting you know. Todd Swanson is going to be our guest on April 18th. He's a professor at the University of Missouri St. Louis. Just recently finished a book called The Changing American Neighborhood, and he is offering a 30% off price on his book if you're inclined to get a copy and read it in advance of his appearance and discussion on April 18th. There's a QR code there on the screen. You can just scan that, place your order, and get 30% off. That'll go out in our emails as well, so continue watching for that, making you aware. And then one last item, in Salem, Missouri, they just completed a big community mural. It was a long process. They had listening sessions. They enlisted the help of a artist who gathered their ideas about what needed to be featured, drew it out, had community members come in and help paint it. A massive undertaking, as you can tell, but a beautiful, beautiful mural in Salem, Missouri. So that kind of seemed to fit with our theme today, because we are talking about a lot of art-related topics. And in fact, our first speaker today, our first presenter, Alysia Christy. She's the director of public art project. She's the director of a public art project. There we go. During Neighbor Week in Midland, Michigan. And if you've been doing this class for a little while, you will recognize that town, because Midland was one of our very first classes where we had the mayor on and others talking about all the things they do during a Good Neighbor Week in Midland. They're quite an example for the whole nation. And likewise, I think this project that she has going on is a great learning example for all of us as well. So, Alysia, thank you for joining us today. Good to see you again.
Hi, David. Thanks for having me join all of you. I'm excited to chat and learn a little bit more about all of your work through this conversation. As David said, my name is Alysia. I work at the Midland Area Community Foundation in Michigan, and my role is the Director of Community Impact. And so essentially that means I support two prongs of the organization. I oversee our grant-making processes, but I also get to work with all of the initiatives that we help to be the liaison for, be the community leader with. And a couple of those initiatives I'm really, really excited to talk with you today about. The first being our Public Arts Midland initiative, and the second being our Cultural Awareness Coalition initiative, and really taking you through a journey of how those two entities came together to intersect, honestly, almost at happenstance, and really help us to amplify this concept of inclusive neighboring within our community. And so as much as David said, we may be a model, I can appreciate that. And I thank you. We work really hard at this concept of bringing voice and people and experience to this concept of inclusive neighboring. But I remember when I first started at the Community Foundation, meeting with David and learning about all of the work that he and his partners and your communities are involved in. And it really is awesome to think about the fact that we might all be in physically different spaces, but we're amplifying this concept around neighboring in just really awesome ways. I just went to that website that you put on for the Won't You Be My Neighbor Day.com, and that's really cool. I'm excited to check that out. So I will say I did bring some slides today because I don't want to ramble or get too off topic. But if anybody does have any questions, please drop them in the chat, or honestly, just take yourself off mute and shout, because really, this isn't very entertaining or cool without any sort of conversation or curiosity from all of you. The other thing I'll caveat too is I find it sometimes hard when maybe external speakers come and they provide this like super awesome idea and plan and effort that has been underway within their community. I find myself asking like, yeah, but how is that adapted to our local context? And like, how do I even start that? So I want to be really honest with you that the work I'm going to share, it sounds pretty for the most part, right? But it's a lot of work and it's a lot of trial and error, and it didn't happen overnight, and it's messy and it's complex. So I'm happy to talk about those things as well, because that honestly makes for this work to be pretty meaningful and authentic as well. So before I get started, does anybody have any burning questions?
I'm glad you used the word messy.
Yeah, well, there's not many other ways I can explain it. Okay, can all of you see my screen?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, I want to start here because this is the crux of why we do everything we do in Midland County that amplifies people, perspective, voice, inclusion. And that is the fact that Midland County, where I live, and the community that I serve, we have a vision statement. And we've had a vision statement as a community for just over 10 years. And it's that Midland County will be an inclusive community. Together, forward, bold, an exceptional place where everyone thrives. And over the last year, we've implemented something called Max Loves Midland. This is our new collective communication hub that we utilize to bring a sense of belonging and connection across people and sectors and systems, because the reality is Midland County demographics historically has spoken more to the people with an education, the people who live in a specific zip code, the people who live in the city and not the rural community. And so what Max Loves Midland aspires to do is bring all people together under this collective communication hub to be able to help champion, learn, and share some of the information that is going on in the community and help to cultivate a true sense of belonging. And the reason that I pause there is I really feel like without a vision statement for our community, the work that I'm going to share with you simply could not happen in the aligned way that it has over the last couple of years. Whoa, I'm sorry. That goes quick. Okay. So the first initiative that I just referenced is Public Arts Midland. And I know that today's topic is using public art to reach neighbors and neighborhoods. And so it is very timely and it is very exciting to share a little bit about public arts, which is an initiative of the Community Foundation. If any of you are bored or love to tool around on social media, we are on social media with the handle, the Public Arts Midland. Public Arts Midland was formed in 2017 when a group of community members, primarily artists at that time, came together and said, we need a space to cultivate public art in our community. To be quite honest, I don't think they knew exactly what that meant. They just knew they had to start somewhere. And so this was the aspirational mantra, I guess you could say, that was developed through the 2017 planning. And that, when we look at defining public art, what does that mean? And really, it's that public art is not an art form. It's a classification. It's a type of art that is open to the community for shared viewing. Public art transforms our community by expressing values, culture, and history through all types of models and modalities around art. It creates a unique gathering space for the community and ties us together to create a sense of belonging and pride. And I kept this slide in this presentation today, honestly, not because there was any known relevance to neighboring, but when I actually look back on this 2017 developed mantra, I literally see neighboring infused and oozing from this. When we talk about developing neighboring and neighborhoods, we talk about cultivating a sense of community through belonging. And so I just think it's this beautiful tie that we had no idea was going to come to a crossroads back, 7 years ago now.
See, you're ahead of the time.
Yeah, not intentionally. So just very quickly, Public Arts is a group of community volunteers. And yes, the Community Foundation helps to convene that, but it's all people who care about our community and about public art. We truly believe in the power of public art beyond what is seen, felt, and heard through art, but it's a way that it allows people to come together and experience something together, equitably, and thoughtfully within our community. And we exist to help create connections through public arts. We believe that art builds stronger and more vibrant communities, and it gives our community a collective voice and a way to express our values while it brings awareness of and beauty to Midland. And this is the year, 2020, that really we started to become curious about whoa, public art does have powerful roots in the concepts of neighboring. And again, we weren't planning it. We had no idea we were endeavoring in this. But in 2020, and I should say, Public Arts Midland, every year, we highlight or complete a formal public art piece in the community. And the goal is always to cultivate local artists to put in an application through a various call to artists. And so in 2020, pre-COVID knowledge, we decided that we were going to do painted pianos, that we were going to put a call out to have 15 artists come and paint pianos. What a cool thing. You look at all of, social media for big communities, vibrant downtown communities, and you see this awesome, cool, trendy thing that is painted pianos and people can play on them. Okay, so that's kind of how it started. And then March happened and COVID rocked our world. And then Midland County actually underwent a catastrophic flood. We had a dam failure here in our community in May of 2020. And it was a catastrophe. We had thousands without housing and power, and it was horrible. And that was at the end of May. And this project was still set to be underway, but it almost felt like, do we even do this? Public art feels so low order priority in all of this. And honestly, I'm so grateful that we ended up moving forward with this project, because this was the glimpse that so many of our community members had into the power of public art. So in a time that our community was under significant disrepair from a catastrophic flood and still being required to socially distance and isolate, we went forward with this painted piano project. And through this, we had 15 local artists paint pianos. And the amount of connection and community and authentic neighboring that was created through this work was astounding. We had people coming together to play on the piano and sing together that did not know each other. We had people coming to listen to people take up the music in the middle of the street and start dancing to it. Like, I know it sounds really rainbows and unicorns when I share that, but I cannot underscore the power that unintentionally this project had on our community during what should have been and what was the most isolating, lonely time. This public art piece brought people together in a safe way and a way that still felt meaningful to many. And here are just some of the pictures. And it was really cool. We had a diverse range of artists. We had our youngest in middle school, and our oldest, I think, was in her 80s. Okay, so that happened in 2020. It was really cool. We celebrated it. It was awesome. Great. Close the books on that. Well, Cultural Awareness Coalition is another initiative within the Community Foundation. And our work is to build inclusive community, that Midland County will be an inclusive community. So similarly to Public Arts Midland being a community group of volunteers, Cultural Awareness Coalition is also a community group of volunteers that believes in inclusion. And we know that Midland County has a long way to go in becoming an inclusive community. And so we do create Cultural Awareness Coalition endeavors to work very diligently to coordinate, partner with, and amplify programming across our community that supports inclusion and inclusive practice and efforts. And so we do that through about a dozen subcommittees that all have different purposes around either training, events, initiatives that all support the work of inclusion. And this is where the intersection happens. Cultural Awareness Coalition has been around for about 25 years. However, in 2020, David already mentioned our mayor, Maureen Donker. She is a part of Cultural Awareness Coalition. And she said, hey, Cultural Awareness Coalition, we have become stale as it relates to the concept of neighboring in our community. We have not had a good way to champion and channel what Neighboring Week could be in Midland County. So Cultural Awareness Coalition, you believe in inclusion. Can you do this? And so we, as the Cultural Awareness Coalition, started to amplify this work. I want to be really clear that Cultural Awareness Coalition does not own Neighboring Week. We promote it, we elevate it, we create pathways for people to engage from a business sector, a physical neighborhood sector, workplace, nonprofit. And we basically say, go forward and do the work of neighboring and let us know about it and let the community engage in some of that. And so that is one of the most fun, awesome subcommittees that exists at Cultural Awareness Coalition. And we've been doing that since 2020. And our tagline is that inclusive neighboring is the catalyst for building a sense of belonging across Midland County. And so in 2020, we started talking about like, what are cool, unique ways to get the information out about neighboring and get people involved and just curious about it. And okay, this is fall of 2020, right? We had just closed the books on that piano project in 2020 during late summer. And so that's when we really started talking about, whoa, like public art actually could be a really cool use of cultivating curiosity around neighboring and sharing a story of inclusion and the power that neighboring has to promote inclusion. And so in 2021, we tested this a little bit. We put a call out and we had our community artists make 4 mini Neighboring Week murals. And since 2021's Neighboring Week, so for 3 years, these 4 murals have been traveling around Midland County week by week to different spaces in our community during the month where we celebrate Neighboring Week. So during September, essentially. And these murals they've cultivated curiosity, they've cultivated a shared language around inclusion, and they help to amplify the work of Neighboring Week. And we have some boilerplate messaging that goes along with each of them related to neighboring. So that leads us to 2023 and really continuing to look for ways to, again, bridge these two entities, right? Like Neighboring Week is awesome on its own and Public Arts Midland projects are awesome on their own, but it's really, really beautiful when 2 meaningful efforts can come together to say, how do we work together to align our individual works with something bigger than our own individual projects? And so that's where this idea around Public Arts Midland endeavoring in their annual project in 2023 would be something in direct connection to Neighboring Week. And so we put out a call in 2023 through Public Arts Midland for, again, 15 artists to come forward and submit a design for a bench, because our theme this year as Public Arts Midland is that art connects. We believe that art connects in community, in neighborhoods, in workplaces. And so the call to artists that we put out was very intentional. It was about, tell us how connection and how physical relationship with people can cultivate this sense of neighboring and a sense of celebration around diversity and neighboring. And then we also told them, you know, as artists, we have a very specific color that we would like you to input into all of your designs. And it's this teal color. As a non-artist, I know it's not actually called teal. It's a Sherwin-Williams, very specific color. But nonetheless, we ask that that color be thread through all of these. So that way, when they're out in the community, we all of a sudden start to build this alignment around neighboring, because this is the color that we use to promote neighboring. We start to build alignment to public art. And again, we continue to promote this power of connection. And so these are just some of...
Is that the same color that's used on turquoise tables?
It is, yes.
Yes,
yep.
Okay.
Yep, so and that's really where we took that from.
Yeah, perfect.
Yep. And so we called it our neighborhood bench project, very simply, right? Because again, it's this idea that if we're clear about what we are aspiring to do, we hope that we will build some engagement and energy around it. And we, again, had a significantly diverse representation of artists, of people, of lived experiences, and that totally showed through in their designs and the final pieces. These were really cool because in addition to making sure that we had diverse representation of artists within this work, we also made sure that these benches, once complete, were put across the entire community. It wasn't pocketed to, you know, downtown or one little spot within the city. We have a big rural population here within Midland County as well. And so we made sure that where these benches were placed were reflective of who our community and our demographics are. And so it allowed our rural community and our city to engage in this meaningful work together.
When you show them all together like that, those are gorgeous.
Yeah, they really are. Sometimes I just toggle between some of these things that we've done, and it's really beautiful. This top right one here that says Jana and Nana, that's a father-daughter combo. It's not done in this picture because this actually was a bench that the community painted during one of our summer festivals. They came together and they painted that. And so now that's under a big bridge overpass, and it sits right in front of a huge, beautiful mural that we had commissioned for our community a few years ago. So again, it's just part of the broader landscape of public art.
Wonderful. And
then just finally landing on this cool thing. And this, again, this was not planned. Like, we did not mean to do any of this. It just happens through these authentic relationships and through these groups that have real like desire to see change and support happening within their community. But during Neighboring Week, which again, we celebrate at the end of September every year, Public Arts Midland decided to launch a huge scavenger hunt that essentially archives all of the public art pieces in our community, not just the ones that Public Art Midland have put out calls to artists for, but all public art pieces in our community. And they said, hey, in honor of Neighboring Week, we want you to go with your neighbors, meet people, and do this scavenger hunt. And the amount of traffic and engagement we got on this was so cool to see. I think we had over 3,500 visits to this website, this scavenger hunt site. And we had some prizes associated with people who would submit selfies in front of the public art pieces. And so obviously, you know, that helps, like putting a prize out as an incentive. But I think we had over 600 submissions of people and selfies in front of public art. And so again, it's just this cool way to cultivate community in alignment to neighboring, but not necessarily having to do anything totally out of the realm of what these groups are already focused on doing, which is inclusion and promoting the public arts scene. So this is still ongoing. We are not done. We don't know what's next, but we do know there's power when these initiatives come together and we work together to amplify Neighboring Week through the other mediums and initiatives that exist within Midland County at large. And I will just share on a final statement. I mentioned to you that both of those initiatives are made up of community members. I also am really proud to say that both of those groups are made up of cross-sector community members. So we have representation from just general community members who believe in the work of either of those or both of those initiatives, small businesses, corporations, governmental municipalities, education, faith community. It really is this very like diverse representation of community. And I think that's why some of this works so well, because we have a lot of different experiences that we can then continue the conversation with. David,
Wow.
that's all I had.
Well, I love your enthusiasm for sure. That is contagious. And I know it's a lot of ground to cover. Do some of you have some questions you'd like to ask? Jump in, please do.
Alysia, you were saying you have a rural population as well. How do you include everyone? Did you organize by Zoom calls or like how did you include everyone given the geography that you're dealing with?
Yeah, to make sure are you talking about in the calls to artists or in the promotion of Neighboring Week or
The promotion of Neighboring Week and the volunteers that you have on your groups.
Yeah, so we use the places and spaces that already exist in those communities that have trust with the community. So we have in our rural communities, local family centers. So we use our local family centers to get out those calls to artists, to put out the ask for people to join in Public Arts Midland or cultural awareness. We never host anything in one modality anymore. So it's not in person or nothing. It's in person and here's a Zoom link. In person and here, hey, call in for this. I just want to reference to Carolyn's comment around disability. Absolutely. And it's been so cool because another initiative is called our Access to Community Initiative, which is all about accessibility in our community. And I am so excited that in our next Public Arts Midland mural that we are promoting in 2024, we will have sensory components of that mural. That is sense of smell, sense of touch, obviously visual. And so we really are looking at art and connection and neighboring through a multimodality of senses. Lisa, I see your hand.
Yeah, thanks. It sounds very exciting, all the stuff you're doing. I'm just wondering if you have any data or if you have any kind of feedback on the increase in the sense of belonging and kind of differentiating that from engagement versus a true sense of belonging versus inclusion and things like that. I'm just wondering where that lands.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably spin something to tell you like, yeah, here's how we're tracking it. Not yet. That is something we are working on. Again, as a side pocket, there is something called the Wellbeing Coalition here in Midland County. And the primary focus right now that we are endeavoring as the Wellbeing Coalition is how do we measure people's sense of belonging to their communities and through the community that they identify, wherever that is across Midland County. And so we're working on building some like a very simple data set that helps us to capture, again, that authentic sense of belonging, because you're completely right, Lisa, there is this continued balance of engagement is different than a true sense of belonging. But what we do believe is that it has to start somewhere, right? And so the ability that we have to engage community is sometimes that first step to then say, okay, and what does this translate to in the sense of cultivating ongoing belonging? Because one project a year or 1 week of neighboring a year is not actually going to do that true authentic work. So I don't have a good answer for you, except for I hear you. And those are conversations that we're having too.
Thank you.
Well, this might be relevant. You know, Gallup did a 3-year data study. It was called the final result was called the Soul of the Community study. And they looked at 26 major cities, trying to determine what created a sense of belonging, or more specifically, place attachment was what they were really interested in. And of all the different criteria, the 3 that consistently flowed to the top in all 3 years in all those cities was social offerings, openness, and beauty. And so it led to reordering in many of those cities about what they were investing time and money in to make their community better, to get people to fall in love with where they lived, right? Through place attachment. But I think a lot of what you're doing here falls under that beauty category. So it really does fit with what they have found to be the top 3 criteria. And those 3 were high and above other options on that study.
Yeah.
High and above economics as well.
Yeah. And I'll just share, because I do agree with you. And I think going back a little bit to Lisa, and again, I can't prove this, right? But when you saw some of the benches, there is cultural representation of communities of people that live in our community. So you saw an Asian population represented, you saw a Black woman represented, and those were all done very intentionally, again, at the artistry of the person who was completing that bench. But we did not want to create another round of art and community building, just like you said, to look good, to experience it well. But like, how do we make sure that what we're putting out to community represents who we are and who we want to continue to amplify in our work?
I have two questions, and then others can still jump in and ask questions. One, you mentioned putting out a call to artists and picking 15. Did that call on the ones that you picked, was there some financial component to that? Did you pay for the product or something like that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The reality is, yes, these projects do cost money. Public Arts Midland, we have an endowment fund that we are able to essentially cover up to about $10,000 within programming every year. And that historically has covered the nuts and bolts of what we look to do. Because in addition to the one public arts piece a year, we do some other things with the community. But this year we actually applied and were awarded a Michigan Arts, Culture, and Council grant. And so that allowed us to be a little bigger in the project, right? We were able to do 15 instead of 7 benches, those types of things. So in any call that we've ever done, whether it's for a physical mural or another public art piece, we have always gotten the supplies donated from our local hardware store, the paint and painting supplies. That's been a great partnership. And then we're able to use the money that we have to provide a stipend for the artist to do the work. This year, we implemented a focus on emerging artists, because that's equity in the arts, is that we're focused on artists who are just up and coming and even identifying in their expertise. And so we partnered all of our emerging artists with a mentor artist or a more experienced artist to just be a consult to them. And so that mentor artist also got a small allocation of a stipend as well.
Mark is wondering if one of those categories of artists would be senior artists, senior adults.
We didn't specifically say we're targeting older adults and that population, but what we did say is, here's some demographics. Where do you fall, right? And so we wanted to make sure that as we looked across the demographics of applicants, we were diverse. And the bigger part is, how are we making sure we post and get that call to artists out into community? So we have a really great partner at our local senior services, and she's on that list to say, hey, Trina, get this to the folks that you work with. And so making sure that we have the right people in place to help pass the word, I think, is also an important piece.
And then one last question from me. Park on and tell us a little bit about the scavenger hunt that was done, because I know in Missouri, with one of the initiatives we're doing, we've talked about, how do we get any sort of feedback about who has viewed this public art? What do they think of it? Do we need to have a contest where people vote on their favorites? I mean, how do we do that? The scavenger hunt sounds like maybe it answers some of those questions. So tell us a little more about that.
Yeah. Again, like, if I told you that it was like done super brilliantly thoughtful, I'd be lying. We stumbled upon it. Like, how do we make sure our community knows what is out in our community? Because as Public Arts Midland, we didn't even feel that we knew 100% of the public art pieces that were in existence. And so we do, on Public Arts Midland, have someone who's a brilliant graphic designer. And so she built that website as a Squarespace website. Or no, that might have been just a Google setup. And again, I'll forward it to you so you have the link.
Okay.
It didn't cost us anything. It did take time. We all went out and we took updated pictures of the public art pieces and we got them into that archive. I mean, again, in all honesty, like the prizes do help. It helps to drive people to this initiative. So when we were reflecting on like, do we do scavenger hunts every year? The answer is yes. We want to continue to promote this. We're not going to necessarily leave it up for the entire year. We're going to use neighboring week as the time to say, hey, y'all, like connect through the power of public art. And then again, yes, still having some prizes. And I think that the measurement around that, or like how meaningful is public art to people, we don't know. I don't know if you can ever actually measure that. But what we do make sure we listen to are the shared testimonies, the shared stories. And again, that is super helpful for us. Again, can we always do better? Absolutely. But that is a quantifiable way to see, wow, we had 3,500 people hit on that website. Like that's a data point. We had over 600 pictures, like selfies of people with an art piece. That's a data point. Doesn't tell the whole story, but it helps to just make sure, you know, we're aware of those things.
Yeah. Well, you may have stumbled upon it, but I still think it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
So it's one worth considering emulating then. Well, thank you for your presentation and your excitement, enthusiasm. And when we share out the video to our wider network today, we'll include some links in it as well.
Sounds good. Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I see some applause, but no other questions here. Well,
Yeah, I've got one.
Sure, Patty, go ahead.
I apologize. I'm a little late asking. Do you have a link online where we could look at your artwork?
Yes, I'll put it in the chat, and then I will also make sure that David has it.
If you would send that out in your follow-up email, David, I would appreciate it.
Yes, I sure will. Thank
you.
Thank you. And well, our next presentation, and I think I'm actually running this one, aren't I, Michelle?
Thank you, David.
Let's see, multitasking here. Michelle joins us from Raleigh, North Carolina, and she's going to be sharing about Lawn Raleigh. And let's see here. Here we go.
There you go.
All right. Michelle, it's all yours from Raleigh, North Carolina. Thanks again for joining us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me to talk about this. And hi, everybody. And this first slide and what you're seeing, that's pretty much what Lawn Raleigh was all about. We made an event where we asked people to just create art with their neighbors. It's lawn art with neighbors. And this was one of the pieces. It was called Acorn Utopia, Y-O-U, Copia. A huge, like cornucopia, where the neighbors each decorated their own acorn and added it to it. So I think there were 50, 60 different families and people who added to this one. And then we included chalkboard acorns. So people that were passing by to see the art could contribute to it, like this little girl was doing at the there. So next slide, David.
Love it.
So we called it a community creativity and connection experiment. All Raleigheites were invited to create or display or perform any kind of art on any patch of grass. And it was inspired by, obviously, and it owes its creation to Lon Springfield, which David is involved with, and he provided tremendous help to our effort. So really appreciate it there. Next slide, David. Okay, why Lawn Raleigh? Evolution of a first-time organizer. People, particularly in my family, asked, why, Michelle? Why Lawn Raleigh? What are you doing? Because I am an introvert. I am not in government. I run my own business from home. And I was just before the pandemic. Raleigh is booming. As many of you know, it's one of the fastest growing cities in the nation. 70 people a day are moving to Raleigh. And as somebody who's lived here for 20 years and love Raleigh, I was really starting to see a division between newcomers versus old timers. A lot of, go back north, we don't need you here. That kind of stuff was starting to really just bother me. During this time in May 2020, I read this book, This Is Where You Belong by Melanie Warnock. Many of you know her, and she was a speaker in Neighboring 101. And it just really transformed my thinking, because I love where I live, and I didn't really think about a lot of people who don't love where they live or who don't feel connected. So I started thinking about what I could do just as an individual to try and help newcomers to Raleigh. So I created a website called Raleigh Onboarding, figuring that we onboard people at work, let's onboard them to a city. It's down right now because it got hacked a couple of weeks ago. So we're working through that. So I worked on that for about a year, and I was really enjoying that and helping people, but I still didn't feel like I was connecting the old timers with the newcomers, and that neighbors were getting to know each other. So then I read David's wonderful book. He calls it a white paper. I call it a book, Becoming an Engaged Neighbor, which was amazing and inspired me. And Lon was covered in that. And I thought, well, why don't I try that? You know, just to try and bring neighbors and neighboring together in Raleigh, just something I could do on my own, kind of. And so I reached out to David, and he was like gracious and everything. He let me use the name. He sent me documents. He was kind of my mentor, and I can't, like, that was really important to someone who's not, like, this was my first time doing anything like this. So to have somebody I could ask questions and who was so gracious with his time was really helpful to this.
Well, I just always love seeing enthusiasm, and you were enthusiastic about it. And so anything we can do to encourage that, right? Rising tides lift all ships. So if you can do something to have
I
success,
appreciate that. All right,
well,
so next slide. So this is the list that I started with of everything that we stayed with the flamingo theme, because when people think of lawn art, they think of flamingos usually, and I'm also from Florida originally. So flamingos was our key. So I created this of setting dates, setting a budget. I put, this was self-funded at $1,000, and I just thought, okay, we spent a little bit less than that. And then we had these things to create: the messaging and the participation guidelines, a logo, which I used Canva for, had to make a huge contact list of different people I could contact in the city. We did press materials, and David was helpful with that. And I linked it all to a Google Drive folder that people could just access and pull stuff from. We did social media accounts, just Instagram and Nextdoor is what we reached out with. We had flyers created in Canva. We did a website and a sign-up form that had a map. We did yard signs and a QR code, and then a survey at the end. And so I created this list, and then, to be really honest with you guys, I freaked out completely and got completely overwhelmed and just shut down for like 2 weeks. And was just like, I can't do this. I don't know how to do it. I don't know what I'm doing or why I'm doing it. And then, you know, with some support from friends and family, kind of got back up on the horse again and carried on. So, okay, next slide, David. So these are just some of the support tools that we pulled together. So we had the website, and we had an Instagram account. The yard signs for participants, we weren't going to do them, but I found them to be really important because they branded the event, and so people understood why random art was just popping up in people's yard. They could see the sign, they could see the website and check it out. So that was a really important part of this. We did laptop stickers with the logo. We did flyers, and there is a neighborhood department in Raleigh in the city, and I had known someone there, and he offered to translate it all into Spanish for me free. So we were able to translate the materials, and then the folder of media assets there. Okay, next slide.
all right.
So we had 9 sites with about over 100 people contributing to the sites. Like we said, there's the Acorn Utopia, which was pretty much half a neighborhood seemed to participate in that. You can't see it very well, but there was a professional artist who had wanted to know her neighbors and had not contacted with them in a long time. She gathered them all together, and they did, it's like fabric or material flowers, and put them all over the front yard, and they all worked together. We had a Raleigh little art library that was in front of like an art store, and people contributed pieces to that throughout the weeks. This one neighbor, his fence, they did that. The NC State Arboretum had a art thing going on, and so they joined in with lawn art. So and the Guardian Ad Litem program that protects abused, advocates for abused children, they participated in it. So it was a whole host of different things, from just neighbors to, businesses to government things, that they really all just were supportive of it. So we did a survey after. 100% of them would participate again, and found the experience to be helpful in meeting their neighbors and connecting with their neighbors, particularly after COVID, because it happened this year in 2023.
Excellent.
All right, next slide. So these are the lessons I learned as a first-time person doing this. You have to start earlier. I started like in mid-January for April, and that was just not enough time. So starting earlier, 9 months out, because a lot of the arts organizations we found have planned like a year ahead of what they're going to do, and they're going for grant money, and they're doing all of that. So to try and like insert yourself into their calendar was very hard to do. So back out the time. This is, all of you guys know this who do this for a living. People are super busy and hard to reach. It was impossible to reach people by phone. It was hard to reach people by email because they're swamped. I should have tried DMs and social media. I didn't. And I'm thinking maybe a grand gesture, like sending plastic pink flamingos out or something to grab people's attention. When if a flamingo's sitting on your desk, you can't really ignore it. So just trying to figure out what's the best way, because a lot of people are working from home, and it's really hard to connect with people and get their support. Also realize that Raleigh is big. I think of Raleigh as a small kind of city. There are 500,000 people here. And I was trying to, I don't like that a lot of our art projects are downtown focused, because we have a lot of suburbs. So I was trying to do something where anybody anywhere could participate, but it's very hard to reach all of that. It's just a really big city. So I maybe should have targeted one area or one part of town and focused on that one year, and then changed. And that's just me being like overly ambitious and excited, and everybody will love this. And it's hard to get the word out to that. I also soon found that cool idea doesn't immediately translate to any action on someone's part. Got a lot of support and, oh, that's a great idea, love that idea, and then never heard from them again, or never, got participation. So I learned to really value anyone who did anything, like who spread the word to somebody, or who agreed to participate, or who gave us supplies, or anything like that, because this was really important. I learned that I can't do it alone. I am an introvert. I tried to do a lot because I just didn't want to impose on people. I just was like worried that they would think it was, just not worth their time or whatever. But what I found out is that the people who were the early adopters of it, who got excited about it, they were willing to help. They wanted to help. They wanted to be a part of it, wanted to be involved in it. So that was a lesson I kind of had to learn of. People will be excited, and they want to be a part of a community that does this. They want to be involved in it. So you got to let them, And I also learned local influencers were surprisingly supportive. I thought first that my focus would be on the bigger media, and we didn't get much coverage from that, but we got a lot of coverage from people with websites and Instagram accounts and just local influencers. And that was very surprising to me. They were very supportive of it and wanted to help. And I found out that most of them, they put out emails with like calendars, what's happening in Raleigh this week or this month. And so they were happy to include that, Lawn Raleigh in that. So I had to make sure that I met their deadlines so that it would go out with that. Also, that recognition is really, really important. Whenever anybody gave us coverage or whenever anybody participated, we immediately put their name up on Instagram and we thanked them. Like this little picture over here, the word is spreading. These were some of the influencers and people who helped us. And so made really sure to thank them. And after it was all over, thank them again. So I think that's it. And there's my email if you have any questions or anything. But I can't thank David enough for helping me do this. I learned a tremendous amount. And what was like resonates with me is on the first day that it happened, I had an art piece in my front yard, and all of my cul-de-sac came out to see it at exactly the same time. And I kind of looked around and was like, this was exactly what I wanted to happen. You know, I haven't seen these people since COVID. I haven't really talked, and we all sat out in front of the art piece for like an hour and just caught up. And that to me was kind of like, okay, that it kind of worked. That was pretty cool.
That's a great example. I love hearing that. Well, Michelle, I appreciate your enthusiasm of what you've been able to do. And it sounds like you have a plan in place to kind of double participation next year.
I hope.
Double, triple, I don't know, quadruple perhaps.
Oh, I don't know. If I get to double, I'm happy.
Well, I love some of your ideas and how you made it your own and made it fit with Raleigh, and look forward to seeing how that grows in future years. I will make a side note here. Neighborhoods USA, or NUSA, the acronym, their annual conference is in South Carolina this year. Columbia, South Carolina. So that's not too far away from you. Maybe
No, it is not.
maybe that gives us an opportunity to meet in person.
Love that.
Their website is nusa.org, nusa.org. I don't know if there's anything there. It's gone out in their newsletter about their annual conference in May. So if somebody can make it, we'd love to see you there. Well, we'll share a word also about something new we're going to try in Missouri. I've got a couple of co-workers on here, Deana and Lisa, and we'll share together about something that we're calling Show Me Art in Neighborhoods. Show Me Neighborhood Art Week is the idea. We're really trying to kind of take what's been going on in Springfield lawn and expand it statewide, but give it some unique features that we've not been able to do with lawn in Springfield. I don't want to do all the talking. Lisa, Deana, one of you want to talk about the unique characteristics of Show Me Neighborhood Art Week, or whatever you had planned to share, I guess.
So you can go first.
Me.
I'll just say that if you don't mind, David, I'll just say that I think I really appreciated your presentation, Michelle, and your like really down to earth approach to like, people saying it's a cool idea doesn't necessarily translate into action, like some other really practical tips like that. We like you are we're lucky to have David on the team, and like you, Michelle, we're taking what they did in Springfield and kind of trying to make this statewide, which is a little bit of a difference than what some communities are doing. And I think we all work in extension, and the kind of unique infrastructure of extension kind of allows for us to even think about doing that, because we have a presence in every county, and our goal is to try to cover the entire state and have participation from all of the 8 extension regions in the state. So that's one thing that's a little bit different. The other thing I'll say is that we're going to, I will say we're going to have prizes for like best in show, and then we're going to have like a regional prize winner for what that region thought was the best in their region, and then we're going to have like audience favorites. So we'll have a number of prizes, and we're actually commissioning artists. I shouldn't say commissioning. We're going to ask artists to donate a piece of art, and we'd like to get local artists and Missouri-based artists. The Missouri Folk Arts Program has a wonderful awards that they give out to the Traditional Art Apprenticeship Program, and they have a woodcutter that did this really beautiful woodcut of the state of Missouri with different colors for different categories. So something along that line. There's blown glass that we're looking at. There's quilts and other kind of textile arts, there's public art, sculptures. So we want to utilize that to not only have this kind of community aspect of contributing to art and to plays, which I think a lot of you have already talked about. So, you know, I think you get that, but we're also trying to cultivate like the artists that are already there, the professional artists. And part of that is because we're seeking funding from organizations like Missouri Arts Council. And so there's that kind of element to it too. So those are a couple of the things that I think make it a little bit different than a lawn art program that's based in a neighborhood. And that's why we've called it Show Me Neighborhood Art Week, because that's kind of the Missouri slogan. So, and that's going to be June 1st to 15th, 2024. And we're hoping to have a public map across the whole state of Missouri. And yeah, I'll let Deana take it away, or David.
I'll go. Okay. So I'm really excited about this program for many reasons. And a big part of the reason is because Lisa and David are such good leaders in so many different kind of projects. So it's fun to join in with them, learn from them, and help advance something statewide. One of the things I've been doing in my neighborhood, just on my own street, because I believe this is truly tied in, this whole project is about neighboring. And so as Halloween came up, and a lot of my neighbors decorate for Halloween, and now it won't be long before they'll transition over to the Christmas decorating. Some even have Thanksgiving decorations out. I'm using this as an opportunity to knock on their door and talk to them about this program, about the Neighborhood Art Week, to try to encourage them to plan ahead for June. So I'm promoting the event just on my own street, but I'm also doing an act of neighboring right then and there by taking the time to talk to them and visit with them, and asking for them to, just share it with other friends and family that live in Missouri. And I also have several friends that are artists. So they may not be my neighbors, but they're in Missouri anyway. And I'm reaching out to them to talk to them about the donations Lisa mentioned, because they are Missouri artists. And so if I can just get some works of art from them, and then encourage them to promote this in their own yard. So, my spin on it is all that Lisa says and all that David is doing, but how can I personalize this for me and my own neighbors and my extension council members and extension council coworkers? I try to build stuff person by person, because we all know that, like Michelle said, you can get really excited about something and you can post it globally and people will say, oh, what a cool idea. I think that's a great idea. I'd like to see what you make happen. But when you can go out and talk person by person, door to door, you can get more leverage and more involvement. So that's how I'm trying to work part of this program. And of course, I will utilize social media too. But I really am finding in my neighborhood that me just walking the door, door to door, people are like, what does she have now? But they open their door and they talk to me.
Those are some great points. Those are great examples. And I should add that Deana is a community development specialist, and Lisa is too, although I think it's really more community arts specialist is kind of her focus. And so we're really relying on both of them and their expertise to really find niche ways to spread this concept statewide. Work in progress, first year effort. And but I think we're every year you can make a few modifications, but our hope really is here to help people build connections with their neighbors and to develop a sense of belonging or appreciation where they live, and doing it through the arts and getting people involved in this idea of public art. So appreciate both of them being involved and the ideas they bring to the table. Anything else to add, Lisa or Deanne?
No, it's your turn, David.
Oh, it's my turn. Huh. I don't know.
Oh, I just put into the chat that I'll just quickly say, Michelle, again, I love how you describe any plot of grass, and you mentioned performance art too. I kind of come from more performance-based art, and so I love that. I don't know that we're going to get any of that, but I love it.
Thank you. We didn't, but I'm hopeful that
Yeah.
we will as we go forward, because I'm going to press hard on it. I'm going to start reaching out to more theater people and try, because I think it would be great. I think it'd be fun.
Well, it's worth pursuing and worth trying. And we this year with Missouri Good Neighbor Week, we did get 61 of our county extension councils involved in doing a service project during that week. And I see this as kind of a similar model. What can we do to really engage those county extension councils to be involved and do something with public art? It gives us an opportunity to talk about the value of public art, what that brings to the table. All of Lisa's work in that area as well. Not to mention that it gets them enthusiastic about just neighboring in general, but maybe what art can bring to their community or their county. I just think it has a lot to do with what could grow out of this as well. So there's a lot of reasons I feel like we should be enthusiastic about this. And so I had a few more slides to show, but they are not advancing. So we've had some interesting projects in Springfield in the past, and hopefully that will continue statewide. Here we go. Just, public art can be complex, large, and simple. We've seen all sorts of different examples of those in the past in the Springfield area, things that represent every neighbor, or things that's just one neighbor with an extremely gifted art set that they want to create something and display publicly. Something that could involve kids doodling and with paint. This was squeegee art. And let me just say, this is the last time I will ever do anything with squeegee art and children. It was a mess, but it seemed like a good idea at the time. And we got to have it up for a couple of weeks, displayed among the red buds. And sometimes people are sending messages. This was in an area where a new road was built. They were tearing out a bike path and going through some forested area. So these two neighbors used it as an opportunity to kind of do a protest piece of art as well. But we've seen everything from banners to themed projects and yards. So I think, the sky's the limit, but there's also for people who have lots of skills, maybe in sculpture or other things, but even more simple things, painting in yards or whatever, yard murals, simple murals. So sky's the limit, and looking forward to seeing what people come up with statewide. We will keep everybody posted as the year goes along through our emails on how you can participate or how your community can get further involved. And we're, like the two mentioned before, financing is a big part of that. So we're working on some grants and some things that will help us determine what exactly we'll be able to do as prizes, what exactly that part looks like. But we feel like that's kind of an important part to get people artists engaged and giving of their time toward creating a piece. But then also I love that scavenger hunt idea and getting people out seeing the art and letting us know if they've seen it. So all right. Well, that's an encouragement from Midland. Maybe getting businesses to be super generous with prizes. That's probably an advantage of doing something maybe in a community, perhaps. Those strong local connections. Maybe this is something we can tap into with some of our networks countywide. Well, I know we've gone past the 1 o'clock time, but I did want to at least bring you up to date on where we are with that. And it was great to hear from Midland and see their very impressive work and project there, and exciting to see the example from Raleigh, North Carolina. Great job, both of you, and so glad you could join us. If there are no other questions or comments, we'll go ahead and conclude Neighboring 101 for this month.
Thank you, David.
Thank you all
Thank
for
you.
joining in.
Right.
Thank you.